Welcome to the Therapy Show podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Mustard. In each episode, I interview a seasoned and knowledgeable talk therapist from the counseling world to glean valuable insights, techniques, and tools that you can apply to your practice and your life. And if you're considering a career in the counseling field or just want to hear about what it's like to be a talk therapist, then this is the podcast for you. Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I want to ask you something. Are you stuck in what to share on social media? Are you feeling a little uninspired perhaps? Do you need some ideas and something to spark your creativity? Well, if you're nodding your head and saying yes, then today's episode is for you. Danielle Cevallos is an incredible content creator and copywriter. How do I know? I recently hired her to write a copy for an ad I placed in a conference program. You know, when you go to a conference and they give you the program that tells you the agenda and the schedule, all that good stuff. Yes, she wrote an ad for me that I then placed into this conference program. She asked me a couple of questions, and within days, she had a few options for me to choose from. What I realized in the process is this: it's not so much about our clinical jargon. It's about how we solve problems for our audiences. She had me get super clear on what I wanted the outcome to be from the ad. So if you're wanting to get better at your content creation, then this episode is a gold mine of advice and tips. Danielle breaks down how you can talk to your audience, how to build your content out, and why being consistent, authentic, and transparent on social media can do amazing things for your business. If you're brand new to creating content for social media, or if you've probably been at this for a while, I promise you, you will get some nuggets and some wisdom within today's episode. And we really hope you enjoy the show. Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. I am super excited to have my friend Danielle Cevallos on the show. Danielle is an expert in the world of copywriting, brand building, and what else am I missing? What else is your expertise?
Being basic. I love talking about content strategy and branding in terms of your messaging, and then of course copywriting. So
yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about how basic you are. Your company is called Basic Girl Marketing. Tell everybody how that name came to be.
Yeah, so until about 2 weeks ago, I was a full-time teacher. And my last teaching job, I lived in South Carolina for a little while, and then we moved to Bangkok, Thailand. And when we moved back to the States, we came back to Nashville. And I taught at a pretty low-income school. It was about 85% free and reduced lunch. And my kids really loved to make fun of me and call me basic, because I guess I was like the first day of school. Like my whole intro was like about how you can learn all these life lessons from Elle Woods, and I had my Starbucks every day, and like I was a cheer coach, so I would like show up to basketball games with like my leggings and my sweatshirt and like my fake Uggs, because real Uggs are ridiculously expensive. But they just would always be like, oh, of course. Or like I'd say, oh, I shopped, I got this at Publix. And they'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so basic. And so it just kind of became this thing that I was like, I guess I am just totally basic. And I don't know, that just kind of carried over into my brand. Like I really do just like, I love The Bachelorette. Like I love all that basic stuff. I'd like to think I have a lot of depth and I'm pretty intelligent, but at my core, I like basic things. Like if you're not sure if something's going to be like a general like market success, like with a large population tested out on me, it'll probably do well, because I'm like that demographic of like pop music and whatever.
Mm-hmm. So. I love it. I think it's the best name, because I knew instantly. When I found out the name of your company, I was like, I know who she is. I know what she's about. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So thanks again for being here, Danielle. And I want to share with our listeners that you recently helped me create an ad, some copy, and I was blown away, first of all, by the fact that you were super efficient and quick, and that what you brought me was just awesome. Like, and I know that we had a conversation about my ideal customer and, the target audience and what the ad was for, but you really were able to capture everything for me. And you gave me two examples. And I just was like, this is awesome. So in today's episode, I would love for you to share with our listeners who are talk therapists, what is it how to write copy that converts for them to gain new clients? And even before you jump into that, maybe what we should do is have a conversation about social media and what it is that we or they need to be doing prior to even writing that copy, writing that content. What do you think?
Yeah, so there's a couple of thoughts I have. So when you're talking, basic principles in copywriting, which I think really translate into all content creation, not just the things you write, but your videos and your Instagram story, whatever you're using as your means of, getting out there in front of your people, is you always want to be clear over clever. And obviously, if you can be both of those things, that's wonderful. But for the sake of bringing new people into your brand, bringing new people into what you're doing, you really want to be super clear, which in a group like this with talk therapists, y'all have a lot of jargon in your brain because you are professionals, been to school, you talk to other professionals all day, and the way that you describe issues, the way that you describe things would probably come across in a really unclear way to just Jenny at home who's really struggling with her kids and needs somebody to talk to. She's not going to describe her problems in the same way a professional would. And this goes for every industry. So this is for, fitness pros who want to talk about all these metabolic terms and nobody's saying that. It goes for business strategists who are, up here at the highest level, but they're targeting people who don't even know like what a profit and loss statement is. So you really need to, the core foundation of writing good copy or creating good content is truly getting into the mind of your ideal client. You have to know what the words, the messages that they're saying about their problems, and you have to use that in your content and in your copy. So like for your ad, you were targeting other professionals, so we could use professional language because they would have understood that. But if we were writing that to people like you were trying to get new clients, we would have had to totally reframe that because what we were talking about was totally outside of what a client would have said if they were looking for someone to talk to. So I think that number one, you need to be super clear on your person. And so many people just talk about demographics. To me, demographics are really secondary. You don't need to know those things. You really need to know the core of the problem that you solve. Gotcha. And you need to know it in your ideal client's language. And then you need to be able to say it back to them in their language. And you need to know what you can give them. And you've got to describe that in their language also, not in your language. And that's where a lot of pros get that wrong because it's so common to them. It's language you use every day.
Right.
So that's kind of the heart of it. The second thing you asked about social media is that then becomes your guide for what you put on social media. That then says, okay, I'm going to do blogs, Instagrams, live videos about these topics. So if my clients are saying, they feel alone, they feel like nobody understands them, they feel like they don't have anybody to talk to, they feel like they're lost in a spiral and they can't get out of it, then I'm going to do posts about, do you feel alone? There's some reasons why. Like I'm literally going to take the actual words out of their mouth and I'm going to put them into my content, whether that's your Instagram, your Facebook posts, your live videos, whatever it is. And you're going to build your content not around what you think is important, but what they think is important. And you're going to infuse your style in it. You're going to infuse your positions and your viewpoints, of course. Like you're going to be true to who you are because that's the solution you offer, but you're going to pull them in with their struggles, what they want.
Right. That was perfect. That is, I had a lot of thoughts going through my head as you were sharing those key points. And one of them that I wanted to ask you about a little bit more was when it comes to, maybe talk therapists starting out and niching down and knowing their ideal customer. I think it's kind of hard for talk therapists sometimes to niche it down because when we go to grad school, we're taught like a very generalized way of working with clients, working within theories, working within frameworks. And so we come out of grad school, we get our license and we go, oh, I can help everybody. Like I can help everybody because I'm trained to help everybody. But what I have learned over the years is niching it down and really getting specific on that ideal client, ideal customer is a game changer. And so it's a struggle for a lot of talk therapists. And I know some of them listening today are probably like, okay, I hear the importance of this. I know that's something I could really do. What do you think? Do you think it's okay would it be more specific to talk about like a niche of I work really well with people dealing with depression and anxiety? And then from there, you kind of write your content, or is it so specific, like I work with women who are dealing with anxiety, that kind of stuff? What do you think?
So I think that niching down is incredibly important, but I also think when you're just starting out, you need to give yourself some time. So do whatever you can to get whatever clients you can, and that will inform you about who you like working with and who you're most effective working with. So in those first couple of years, I think it's okay to be a generalist because you're figuring out who's attracted to you, number one, and who you enjoy working with and who you're best able to get results for. Because at the end of the day, what's going to sell is, especially in something like talk therapy, is like a referral kind of system, whether that's referrals online or referrals in person. That's going to be your most powerful tool. And then social media is just going to kind of enhance that. So you really need to find what you're most effective at and what you enjoy doing most. Let's say you're kind of later on in the game and you're like, okay, I really do like working with people who have depression and specifically women. Maybe you're even more niche and you're like, I really like working with moms who are kind of in that postpartum, they're just on the other side of like, they're not, totally in the depths of postpartum depression, but they're just kind of having those baby blues and they don't feel themselves. And that's really who I love. If you're that specific, and create content that's specific. Just like full transparency. And when I was 25, 26, I had an eating disorder for a long time. And when I was looking for counselors, I did not want to go to a generalist. I mean, I was grown. I had a master's degree. Like I wanted a specialist and I paid high dollar for a specialist. And that was her thing. And she was very specialized. She was specialized in adult women, basically, who had eating disorders. She wasn't dealing with teenagers. She wasn't dealing with depression. It was really focused on eating disorders. And so I think that as you become more of an expert in one area, you need to start speaking more directly to that area. And what that will do is that will build your momentum in that area. And you will become that person who's like, I mean, she's one of the few people, if you ask in that area, she's probably one of the few people would say, oh, that's who you need to go to for the source. So you want to build that, but that does take time. And the more you're confident in who you want to work with and who you can help, the more you should create content around that. And then the more it will be easy to create content around that. And then the more you'll get known for content. Gotcha. And known for that. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And thank you for sharing your story about, what you experienced in your 20s. I think that's an eye opener, and I agree. I think when you're first coming out of school and you're just looking to get your hours and you're looking to figure out what it is that you are good at and which type of clients you want to work with, everybody's just kind of figuring out. So I like how you said it just takes time. And it took me time. It took me, oh gosh, I went through so many different, well, I think I want to do this. And I think I want to focus on that. And then, no, I think I want to do this. And it really helps you eventually get to where you want to go. So that's super helpful. Let's talk a little bit about consistency. I think you and I both agree that consistency in creating content is so important. And that is how you really build your brand, is being consistent and showing up. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think specifically because therapy is a business to customer kind of thing, your people really are on social media. They're interacting with their friends. They're buying things on social media. They're getting advice on social media. So they're getting their information from places that are probably not the best resources. So you, as a true professional, number one, want to get past anything that's going to say, oh, I'm not going to do social media, because number one, your people are on it. Number two, they're getting information from it. So you want to be the person on there providing valuable information. That's real. The second thing is people get really burned out by it because they're like, oh my gosh, it's really hard to stay consistent. I have all these clients and I have, paperwork that I have to do with it and I'm billing. But you need to look at what your money makers are, and that front end consistency over time will massively validate your brand long term. Mm-hmm. So when you stay consistent, what I will say is you don't have to be consistent on everything when you start. So I would say start with one platform. Maybe you love Instagram, maybe you love Facebook. I'm a really big fan of figuring out where your people are. And so if you work with, people under 25, then Instagram is your place. If you work with people, mid 30s to mid 40s, then you're going to want to be on Facebook. If you work with professionals, like high level, then LinkedIn is where you want to go. So wherever that is, find a spot and pick and say, you know what, for the next 6 months, I'm going to show up on here every day, whether that's an Instagram post, Instagram stories. Maybe if you're doing Facebook, that's a Facebook post, 1 or 2 lives every week. You need to say, I'm going to show up consistently for 6 months to a year. And here's what happens. People are like, I'm going to do social media marketing. And they throw up a couple posts. Nobody really cares. And then like, see, it didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't work at the beginning, or it feels like it doesn't work at the beginning. That's not true. It is working, but it takes time. Like it takes time for people to be like, is this chick going to stay around? Is she going to put out value? Is she going to bore me to death? And that takes some time to build up. No, I like what she has to say. I like it when she does live videos. I'm going to show up every time. I'm going to read her emails. That takes more than 2 or 3 attempts. And what happens is people give up before they really can ever see any consistent results. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of like, the person who goes on a diet and says, okay, well, I had 3 glasses of water today and I didn't eat any Oreos. So where's my 5 pounds? Then they quit, which we laugh at, but people do that all the time, and so, or my favorite, my daughter did this to me once. We go to the gym. She lifts a few weights, like we always do weightlifting. And she's like, do you think I have a muscle? I was like, you did 5 bicep curls. No, I don't think you have a muscle yet. It takes time. And so social media is the same. And the only way you will ever see results from social media is to do it consistently and do it well over time.
Mm. Yeah. And I agree with you 300%. And I think that so many people, they shy away from it because they feel like, and I say this mainly because I'm maybe in this space of, I see my supervisors and my mentors who don't use social media, but they've already established their brand. They're already known in the community. They've already got a presence. So they're not necessarily looking to grow their practice. But then I look at these, new therapists coming out of school, and they're looking and they are on social media, and the content they're creating, it's wild to kind of be in the middle of that. And I had to find my own way with it. And I had to find my own way of showing up congruently and authentically on social media. And I think that so many people as therapists, we also wonder, is it okay to show our true selves? Because we're the professional. We are the expert, is it okay that I share my struggles? But I want to suggest to the top therapists out there who may be wondering, where do you draw the line? What is enough to share? I have found that when I share of myself, it's helpful because they see me as a human being and they see me as somebody. When I share how I've overcome something, and I'm not just getting on social media to moan and complain, but share a struggle and how I've overcome it, then you become the expert because you have they're looking for that solution. So you just share what you've been through and what's worked for you. And now you understand it and you have the patience for it. You have the compassion for it. You have the empathy for it. You know what it's like to go through that. And that's probably been one of the best things I've done for building my brand and for building my client list. So I think everything you just shared is so spot on and so important. And it's not just put a post up, now taking new clients. Here's my number. You can't do it anymore. That's gone.
And a couple things that you said. Number one, for those of you that are in that middle ground, I think that when you look at the mentors who because the same is true in teaching, right? So I was a teacher for 12 years and now, new people coming out of college, they're throwing their stuff up on teacher-paid teachers, making hundreds of dollars before they even graduate from college. Whereas my mentors, they barely, they, put pictures of their grandkids on social media. And being in that middle place, you have the opportunity to adapt to the new trends and grow your business in a different way than they had. They didn't have that option. So if they were therapists in town, their only way to get clients really was maybe ads in magazines or networking. And they were out there and they were meeting people and they were trying to get the referrals. And so we have the opportunity to do that on a larger scale, and to not, I always say this, people who are real professionals, people who have real solutions, to not be willing to adapt new strategies of marketing just limits the amount of people you can help.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be self-indulgent, and it doesn't have to be like, everybody look at me. Like, if you get on there and you talk about issues that people are struggling with and they don't want to bring into the light and they don't want people to know, but they are struggling, and they see your video and they kind of really quietly slip in your DMs or send you a message or give you a call, like, you're helping somebody who wouldn't have gotten helped because you got on there, shared some value, let them know they weren't alone. And they might, because nobody around them might be saying, I'm going to get some therapy.
Right.
You showing up gives them that freedom to say, you know what, I want to get help. So to not be willing and not really try really limits your ability to help people who might need it. That's number one. Number two, and you talked about what is good to share and what is not. This generation specifically, people like under 30 crave authenticity. And I think that, like you said, there's a boundary. If you're walking in the middle of it, I don't think you should share it. Like, if you're still a hot mess and you're in the struggle, like in it that day, it's not the best time to share. But when you can show, you know what, I'm 35 now, I'm 10 years ago, I struggled with this, but here's how I overcame it. It humanizes you, as you said. And this generation really craves that person who can be real and say, I get it, and I empathize with you, and I can show you how to get out of it. When you're dealing with kind of the older crowd, there is a sense of they do want you to have it a little more together. And so how you can do that is, instead of sharing your deep struggles, you kind of make it more informational, and you position yourself as that expert, is like, hey, this is what it looks like in everyday life, and here's how we combat that. And you can still be personable. You still let your personality show through. But if you're dealing with someone who's like over 45, then they do kind of want you to know your junk a little bit. And that's just a little bit of understanding the generations and what they value. So there's always that. That's why I say this all the time. Knowing your person is literally like the game changer, because it informs everything you do online, everything. So when you know that person individually, like deeply and intimately, like as their thoughts, their pains, their struggles, the things they value, you know how to speak to them and create content for them and connect with them in a way that will always draw them into you.
Oh, I love it. Good stuff. That's such good stuff. I mean, and I'm nodding my head over here because I'm thinking about experiences I've had with the younger generation of being able to relate to them, to be transparent with them, to let them know I understand what they're going through. And then also, being that I'm 46 now, my birthday last week, I have the older population that wants to know more about how many years have you been doing marriage therapy, and do you have any testimonials, and do you have, and I get it. And I understand both sides. And so I think that's really wise what you just shared. So thank you for kind of going into that. Does the thought of sending out your email newsletter make you want to bang your head against the wall? Do you struggle to come up with ideas that will get your email list excited about your emails? Or have you let your email marketing totally slack off, so it's been a dumping ground of randomness? If yes to any of the above, you should contact Danielle at Basic Girl Marketing. She will help you come up with an effective email marketing strategy, then write all your emails for you. As a conversion copywriter, she knows her way around a good sentence and into your ideal client's mind. She will help you connect, nurture, and convert your email list in a truly authentic way. To learn more, visit basicgirlmarketing.com or find her on Instagram at basicgirlmarketing. Okay, so let's switch over now to how to write copy that converts for new clients. So what would be some of your best tips for our talk therapists listening?
So the one thing that I always say, and this did not originate from me, I learned this from Joanna Weeb at Copy Hackers, and I don't know if it originated with her, so I don't know where it came from, but you generally want to always remember like the power of one. So you're writing to one person, you have one big idea, and you have one call to action, like one action you want them to take. And so when you are writing an email, a social media post, or even doing a video, whatever it is, you want to have that one person in mind. Like you literally want to have a picture of the exact person you're talking to, because again, that just allows you to speak to their pain points, their desired outcomes, their struggles, their objections, all those things. So one person and one big idea. You want to have one main goal. And as an English teacher, like this is something we would talk about all the time. You know, when you're teaching kids how to write essays, you know, they have their one thesis statement and everything. Like we literally, when we're teaching it, we make them highlight their topic sentences and go back to how it relates to their thesis statement. And you kind of want to do the same thing here. When you come up, you want to come up with one big idea that ties it all together. And that can be a challenge for sure, like figuring out what the thread is, like what's the heart of your writing. But once you have that big idea, you want to make sure everything leads back to it. Like it all connects to that big idea. And then you always want to ask them to take action. So it doesn't have to be to buy or to set up an appointment. It could be, you know, share this with someone who you think might be struggling. Comment below. You know, give me an emoji or a thumbs up. DM me with questions. It could be to book an appointment. You know, if you're struggling with this, book an appointment. So you always want to have one action to take, and you want to be really clear about what it is. You don't want to be like, okay, like that's it, you know, at the end. Like when we teach kids to write a persuasive essay, which is what all writing is when you're doing copying, you at the conclusion is take a firm stand. Like tell them, you know, if you're arguing about, you know, why school should start 2 hours later, you need to wrap it up with, you know, hey, decision makers, it's time to make a clear change by voting to start school 2 hours later. You're telling them directly, I want you to do this thing. So at the end of your Instagram caption, your Facebook post, your live video, you're saying like, I want you to do this thing. Mm-hmm. Here's where to do it. Here's how to do it. Mm-hmm. Again, it could be as simple as hit the share button, or, you know, on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, you know, or, you know, in the podcast, whatever it is. But it's very clear. You tell them how to do it and you tell them exactly what you want them to do. Again, clarity over cleverness. So.
I just want to jump in and say that I learned that a long time ago. If I don't tell them what to do, they do nothing. Yeah. So you always have, even if you feel funny about doing a call to action, like it's not really feels weird, like you're pushy, you're not being pushy. You have to remember that if you don't give them a call to action, they're waiting for it. They're mm-hmm. waiting for you to tell them what to do next. It's really important to get over that fear of being like feeling pushy,
yeah,
salesy. Super important.
And again, if you're someone who provides value, you never need to feel pushy and salesy because mm-hmm. you're helping people.
Right.
You're not like you. I feel like we have this thing about sales and all that stuff. That's only slimy and salesy when you're putting pressure on people to do things they don't want or need to do. But at the end of the day, if you're providing an opportunity to help them mm-hmm. and to solve their problem, and it is a real value and it will really change their life, you don't need to feel guilty about that. And you don't need to pressure people because you're going to learn to speak to what they want. You're going to learn to explain it in terms of how their problems can be solved. And then it's not pushy because you're saying, you have this problem. It sucks. Mm-hmm. Here's my solution. It's going to help you. There's the opportunity to get help. Mm-hmm. And then it's not gross. That's just like, well, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. I love it. Great. Do you have another tip for writing copy that converts?
Yes. So I think that people are afraid of, you know, sounding really flowery, sounding really like poetic. They're like, I'm not a good writer. When you write something, I want you to always give it to like an outside. If you're someone who's not confident in your writing. So if you're really confident, then don't worry about this. But if you're like, you know what, I don't know if this is really connecting. I don't know if this is right. I want you to write your post, write your, you know, video points, whatever it is, and then give it to somebody who is not in your industry. Ask them, hey, like your husband, your best friend, maybe someone you know, not another professional, like not another therapist, but somebody else who's just a regular person who doesn't understand the like lingo, and ask them, does this make sense to you? Like, do you understand this? Because a lot of times we have the curse of like expertise where we know stuff. It's super simple. We think everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. And you would be shocked at what people don't know. Like, you would be shocked. And I always say this, I go back to teaching again because it's so clear. Ninth grade standards say kids need to learn how to write in parallel structure. They need to learn how to use colons and semicolons. Well, I worked in a low socioeconomic school where kids didn't go home and do homework and nobody was reading to them and they weren't writing. And I can't tell you how many kids would come to my ninth grade class and they didn't know what a verb was or they didn't know what a noun was. So I can't teach them parallel structure and I can't teach them fragments and all these things because they don't know. And I get up there and think, oh, we're just going to crush this because it's so simple once you get it. And I realize they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Right.
Because to me, I'm like, well, I know all these, we all do that with our business. We all have this stuff in our head, like this means this means this means this. And there you go. And when we say it that way, people who are not in the industry are like, what are you talking about? Like, and then they tune it out and then it becomes white noise. And then they don't stop and pay attention to your content anymore because they're like, what the heck is she talking about? Mm-hmm. So give it to someone who's not in your industry and ask them if they can explain it back to you. Like, does this make sense to you? Is this boring? Is this something you'd stop and read? And the more you do that, if you do that for a month, then you will learn what people want to hear, what they don't want to hear, what's easy to understand, and you can start adjusting. So if you're really starting out, you feel not really confident in this, then I would say start there and see what they say. Maybe give it to a couple people if you're doing that.
That's awesome. That's such a great tip. I do that with my husband all the time.
Yeah. And it's really important in somebody who's not in the same industry because, like if Fitness Pro gives it to another Fitness Pro, they're going to know. And that's going to seem fine to them. But if they're, you need to give it to like your grandma or your best friend who's like in the middle of 3 kids. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. I like that. That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. Somebody who, because you're not only wanting to know if you're making it simple for them to understand, but also if you're getting your message across. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. And I always say, like in the beginning, ask them, like, what do you think I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's
because it's just, number one, it's going to give you some, like, if they're your ideal client or they're close to your ideal client, it's going to give you some language back to use again in future posts. But at a minimum, you could be like, whoa, that is not what I was saying. And then, you got to start over and you have to reword it because if they're perceiving that, then other people are going to perceive that too. So.
Right. That's awesome. That's great. Great tip right there.
Yeah. I think it's just something that you learn over time with copywriting and content creation in general. You have to just do it.
Right.
You have to do it. You have to show up. You have to pay attention to what's getting responses, what's not. And you have to adjust. You have to look at your data and adjust based on what you see people engaging with, what they want more of. So.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. And it takes practice and it takes patience and it takes, you have to be open to feedback. You have to be open-minded, trying new ways of doing things. For me, I enjoy it. So it's creative. It's a creative outlet for me. So I enjoy it. What do you say to the talk therapist out there who's really busy, who doesn't enjoy it, knows they need to be doing it? What would you suggest? I mean, my first thought is hire Danielle because she rocks and she will. Yeah. That's my first thought. But I mean, maybe that's the tip is just to go to a copywriter and say, develop that, find somebody who understands talk therapy and work with them.
I actually think that is your best option. And I think that as a business owner, you have to figure out, number one, what are the things only you can do? Number two, what are the things you love in your business that you don't want to give up? And number three, what are the most essential money makers?
Yeah.
Those are the only 3 things you should be doing. So do I think you should give away your content creation and content strategy completely? No. As the person who is, especially if you're a talk therapist, you are your brand, you are your business. So you need to have your hands in the strategy behind that. And you need to be, it's got to be your intellectual property. It's got to be your thoughts, but you don't need to write every email. You don't need to write your social media posts if it's not something that you enjoy doing. Now, if it's like you and you like that part, then do it. But you have to focus on the parts of your business that are the things that you love doing and the things that only you can do to make money. And everything else you need to outsource. I mean, we all live in this, like, I have to do everything because whether it's a save money thing or it's like, gotta be mine. I just want to be in control. And all that does is really keep us, number one, and in y'all's field with, therapy, it keeps you from really serving your clients well, because you have a gajillion things in the back of your mind. Like, as a business owner, there's just no way to not have all that in the back of your mind. We all do every day. Right. So that keeps you there. And then it keeps you from growing. You just can't grow. Like, it's an impossibility because you will always be limited by time, and you'll never be able to think strategically about growing your business because you're worried about all these little details. So you need to look at what can you give away. And maybe it is your writing. Maybe it's not. Like I said, maybe you love that, but you can give away these other 5 tasks. Then give them away. Like, you have to be willing to say, this is not an area that I'm good at. It's not something I enjoy. And technically right now it's not making me money. I need to give it away. Because it needs to be done. I think content creation is, specifically written creation, is critical, like, for long-term value, long-term, like, building authority and things like that. It doesn't always make you direct money. So it can. A well-written sales email can definitely make you money. But it might not feel like this is going to make me money tomorrow. Like, if you're writing blog posts or things like that. So find somebody who can write them for you. I have clients, just so you know, because people always get so stressed about this. I have clients all over the spectrum in terms of their involvement. So some people are like, I do not care, write whatever you want. And some people read every email, make edits, say, hey, can we change this? Can you put the button here? I mean, like, super involved. And then there's a bunch in between. So it's okay. Everyone on that spectrum, like, that's okay. Like, you can be super involved in the process, or you can be, like, super hands off in the process, as long as you're guiding what you want the content to look like. It's up to you. So if you don't love it, I mean, you could spend your whole life trying to get better at it. I have a mentorship program if you want to learn how to do it. But do I think that's for everybody? No. A lot of people can give it away.
Right. I gotcha. And I want to just, as I think about what you're sharing and saying, and about my own business and where I prefer to put my time and energy into, like, I like writing my social media posts. I love having the podcast interviews, doing all of that. And I mean, I don't edit them. I have, you and I share an editor, so audio engineer. So I knew right away, like, I didn't want to mess with that, because that would make my brain explode trying to figure out how to engineer a podcast or edit a podcast. And then when it comes to advertising, I knew I wanted help, because that's just not I didn't have the time or the energy to really dive into how to write an ad for a specific market. So that's why I reached out to you and said, I would love your help. So I love how you shared, do the things that you love to do, what you're passionate about, where you feel you're good at. But when it comes to bigger things because I knew that those things were going to be part of how to generate income. There's bigger things that I didn't have the experience with. And so as I've evolved my businesses, I'm actually talking with somebody about email marketing, because that's not my thing either. I know that's something that you do too, right? You do email marketing?
Yeah, I actually have, I'll listen to you about it. I have a monthly email package I'm doing at the end of the month. So get you set up for emails.
Well, there we go.
So if you need somebody to write emails for you, I have a monthly email marketing package. But that's something actually, email marketing, I, as a copywriter, don't ever promote that package, because to me, I just don't think about it. But when I was doing some research, a lot of my business owners said, I hate emails. I don't know what to send them. I think emails are dead. I'm like, they're not if you do them right. And so again, I have a whole launch set up around selling these email packages, because I listen to my people. If I was just in my own little brain, I would never have done that. To me, that's just not, I write sales pages and sales funnels and all these things. And every person was like, email, 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 email. I don't know what to do with email. So I was like, okay, well, I know what to do with email. So that's just kind of goes back to that. Listen to your people, ask them pretty regularly what they need and what they want, because that guides your content and your offers and your packages and all that. So,
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, because this is what I noticed about me. And when I read email marketing or emails is there's two ways I will open up an email. If I know the person already, like personally, I know them, I've had a conversation with them, and what they write is just killer. And I'm going to read everything. I have a friend, he's in email marketing and affiliates, and every email he writes is just good value. And so I'm always excited to open up his email, even if I decide I want to purchase the product or not. That's one way I open it, because I just know he writes good stuff. The second one, because he gives a ton of value in his emails, a ton of like stuff. It's great. And then the other way I will read an email is if I'm following that person on social media and I see them show up consistently with value, like they're going and they're doing Facebook Lives. I mean, that's really, because Facebook Lives to me take that know, like, and trust factor up 3,000% if you're consistent with them. So if somebody I follow has a newsletter, I'm more than likely going to be on it. If I'm on a list and I haven't opened the email in weeks, I'm going to unsubscribe. And it's not because they don't have value in there. I'm just not, they're not in my world on social media, or I don't have that connection with them. So I think what you're saying is so smart. Like, email marketing is not dead. It's just part of your bigger marketing strategy. It's everything, it's in there.
Yeah, I just did a whole live video on this last night in my Facebook group, and it used to be really powerful. If you had a really massive email list, you could just sell anything. But we've all just kind of gotten over email. And like you said, when it is one piece of your puzzle, and it is something where people love you because you're doing Instagram lives, you're doing Instagram stories, you're doing Facebook lives, then they will open your stuff. There's probably about 4 or 5 people who I'm like obsessed with, and I will read every email. Even like, I'll know they're in the middle of a launch and I know they're selling something. And sometimes I even like already have it. So like, I know I'm not going to buy it, but I'll still read the email because it's just, they're people like I feel invested in. So that's one thing to consider is you should have an email list. You should be providing value on it, and it should be in cooperation with multiple other efforts, right? So you should be other places. The other thing you should be doing with your email, and why you should find a couple of people that do it really well in your niche, is you need to have a swipe file. So you need to have good examples. I always say, people tell me email marketing is dead, and they can all think of an email they read all the way through. And I'm like, why did you read that? Why did you open it? Like, you have to start paying attention to why you open emails, why you read them all the way through. What makes you click on something in an email? What makes you want to buy it? We've all bought something from an email. I mean, Ann Taylor Loft sends me stuff all the time. Every day, actually. And 98% of the time I don't open it. But that one day I'm thinking about buying a dress and they have a 60% off sale. Guess who's clicking and buying? Me. So the 100 days that I didn't buy, it was worth it because I just bought. So,
I do this. I just have to say I'm the same way. I get their emails every day, and I get another brand of clothing every day, and I only open it when I'm like, oh, it's time for a bathing suit, and I know that I'm probably going to buy it from them. But I get emails from them every single day. I don't unsubscribe because I know when I'm ready to buy, something's going to be in there for me.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And I also want to say, I think I know 2 of the folks that you read their emails, because they're probably the same ones that I read, even if I'm not buying. I love their emails.
I have there's probably 4 that I'll open anything. And then there's a handful that I'll open a lot of them, like probably 50%. And I will say they all have pretty massive presence online. And you don't need a massive following. They have a massive presence where they're on live videos. They have podcasts. They're sending out lots of value. So they feel a little bit like they're everywhere. Even though you really follow a lot of their content is the same repurposed content, but they feel like they are all over the place. So I think it's something you can't ignore. You need an email list. You have to do it well, and you have to provide value, but it has to also be one piece of your puzzle.
I agree completely. Okay. That's really helpful. This has been such a great interview. I've learned so much. And it's also just validating a lot of the things that I've been working on over the past 6 months to a year, just kind of, increasing my brand or upping my brand to a different level and thinking ahead to scaling my business. I'm like over here, like, okay, I'm doing things. I'm getting there. So this has been so helpful. Is there anything else you want to share about writing copy that converts to new clients?
Yeah, I think the beauty of talk therapy is that you are listening to people all day long, right? And so obviously there's confidentiality and things like that, but you're getting ideal client language every single day. And all you need to do is listen to what are the themes? Like, what are the themes that you're hearing from your clients? what are some of the phrases that they're saying, you know, when they describe, no one says like, I'm feeling really depressed today and I think I need, you know, somebody to really clear my head and talk about it. No, they're saying things like, I feel like I'm covered in a blanket of darkness. Like, you know, they say phrases that are really descriptive about how they feel. Usually use those, because if they're saying them, they're not, there's other people out there feeling them, and you giving them those words like, oh my gosh, that is literally exactly how I feel. Like, I feel like I'm swimming against a current every minute of my life. Like, when you say that to someone who feels like that, it's literally like you're speaking to their soul and they're like, oh my gosh, how do I get out of it? And then you provide the way out, like helping them. So just take that information. Obviously, again, confidentiality, you can't say names, you can't say all those things, but look for that in your everyday practice. Y'all have such access to people that like we don't always have in other businesses, but use those words in your content, because it really does make people feel like you understand, and you do, because you know you can help them. So it's not, you know, it's not a lie, it's not weird, it's, you're just saying it in their way instead of your professional way, you know. Like, I look at every counselor's website and, you know, practitioners. I work for like a kind of local school psychologist kind of deal. It's so clinical and it's so cold. And the people who need it most are not feeling that. You know, it's all emotion up in there that they're feeling. So for you not to speak in that way, you're just missing an opportunity to connect with your people. So just keep track of that as you go throughout your days.
No, I hear you. I think that's so wise. I'm thinking of examples, you know, like the way, it's funny because when a client presents and they tell you what's going on versus what we write in our notes with all of our clinical speak and our therapy, you know, techniques that blah, blah, blah. And then we're the only ones who really understand that because at the end of the day, the clients usually just want to know if they've been heard and that they feel understood. And that's so much of what, you know, that's just so much of what we do is just, we, like you said, we just listen like our lives depend on it. And because we want to hear everything and we want to make sure that the person sitting in front of us feels validated and heard and is given what they need, whatever that might be in that session. And sometimes it's challenging them. You know, sometimes it's not, and I don't want people thinking who are listening that all we do is hug on people and cry with them. It's, you know, our job is, that's part of what we do, but depending on the client and where they are with their stuff or their issue, you know, we take the steps to lightly tread and kind of go a little bit deeper. And every client's different when they're ready for that. And knowing that is part of what we do. And so thank you for like understanding what we do and how we do it. I think that's, and I'm glad that, you know, you were able to share your own experiences of going to therapy and getting what you needed. So thanks again for sharing that with us. And I'm so grateful that you came on the show. Where can people find you, Danielle? I know you have an awesome, I love your Facebook group. Talk a little bit about that group, how they can join, how they can find you, if they want to work with you. Tell us all the good stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me basically everywhere. Basic Girl Marketing. My website is basicgirlmarketing.com. Instagram is at Basic Girl Marketing. On Facebook, it's Danielle Cevallos, and my Facebook group is called The Well-Positioned CEO. And my goal is really to help people find their unique positioning in the market, because content can do that for you. So it's not just copywriting, like it's really about content strategy and creating content that helps you stand out as the go-to expert in your field. And so I'm trying to have some different types of conversations in there. I had an old Facebook group, scrapped it, was done with it. So start over from scratch. I turn a lot of people away because I want people who are serious about their business and about growing it. So if you are interested in that, you can go to basicgirlmarketing.com/community and it'll take you right to the group, or you can just search on Facebook, The Well-Positioned CEO.
Well, I'll definitely put it in the show notes and put it on the podcast page, because I love what, I mean, I think I was in your old group, and honestly, I'm not sure I was very engaged, but in your new group, the stuff you're sharing is so valuable and is already, and it's free and it's just good. I mean, it's just so good. And the people that you have in that group are from all different professions and niches. And it's cool to see everybody kind of rallying together and friending each other and supporting each other and really cheering each other on. It does feel like community. You really created something special in there. So thank you for creating it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to have anyone else. And you can find, I have a podcast, so Basic Girl Marketing Podcast. So
oh yeah, Which is awesome, which is an awesome podcast, by the way. Listen to every one of your episodes. I love it. It's so good.
Probably when this airs, Lisa will have been a guest. So.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And talking about something completely different, but yet personal branding and all that stuff. So, well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. This has been an absolute pleasure. I've learned so much, and you are just the bee's knees. I can't believe I just said that, but.
Oh, I love it. I'm from New York City, and my friend Lauren is from this little town in the South, and she has more sayings than I've ever heard in my whole life, and I can never say them right. Yeah. And I try pretty regularly, and she's like, "No, that's wrong."
Totally wrong.
Don't make any sense.
Yeah.
These don't have names. I don't get it, but I love it. People say that. So.
Well, thank you again for being on the show. I can't wait for this one to go live.
Well, that wraps up another episode of The Therapy Show with Lisa Mustard. I know there are hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and I'm thankful you've chosen to listen to mine. Be sure to visit lisamustard.com to access the show notes and discover more fantastic content. And I'd be grateful if you subscribe to the show. Thank you.